It's great to be with you here today and worship, and glad that you're here in the room, as well as those that are watching online. We're glad that you're with us. Some have asked me to perhaps make a clarifying statement on the news that some have read about the proposed split within the United Methodist Church. And so, first of all, I'd like to say that this is legislation that is proposed. Nothing can happen until it's actually voted on in May. So it could be amended, things could change, and so we really don't know. It's kind of like life in a way, when you go through life and you don't know everything that's going to come your way. You're not exactly sure. But what do you trust in? Will you trust in the Lord, who is that anchor for us? It's interesting, too, in the membership vows of the Methodist Church, it says this: if you became a member, those that have already followed Christ, those that are already serving Jesus, now will you be loyal to Christ through serving within the Methodist Church? This idea that our first allegiance is to Christ is the most important one. When you get to heaven, it won't be, okay, you were United Methodist, you go over here. You're Catholic, you go over here. You're Presbyterian, you go over here. It's not going to be that way. It's, do you know Jesus? And that's what makes all the difference in the world, to know Jesus. That's why that membership vow actually goes, as members of Christ's universal church. You see, you already are a member of that, and that's the key. So sometimes when we don't know, we just know who we are. And if you've been here for any length of time, then you probably pretty much know our DNA and what's important to us and reaching out into the world. And so that's where we trust in and live each day in the Lord. We'll also give you updates and let you know more about that as news breaks, but there really won't be anything that you can know for sure till May. Bill Mallory was trying to find his purpose in life, and this series is really about understanding our purpose in this life, in the sense that we have 20/20 vision of what God wants for us. And Bill Mallory was that kind of a guy. He just wanted to know what his purpose was. So he bought an airline ticket from the United States and he went to India. And he thought, maybe in India, I could get around some people that could help me understand my purpose in this life. And for whatever reason, and the people that he talked to in India, he just couldn't get what he felt was a reasonable answer for his purpose in life. So he came home and he thought he would travel around the United States and ask different people. He really wanted to search out and find the purpose of life. So he went, as he was traveling, he stopped at a Chevron gas station. Now, you don't necessarily see those in Iowa much. You didn't see those back then, but you may have been growing up at a Chevron gas station. Well, the Chevron gas station had a sign, kind of a little logo, and it got him to thinking. It said this on every station: as you travel, ask us. So he got the idea. Maybe they would know. So he went up to the first attendant that came out when he was filling his car up with gas, and he said, listen, it says here that as you're traveling, and I'm traveling, that I can ask you. And so I just want to know what my purpose in life is. And the first guy said, sorry, I'm new here. I don't know. Another person says, I don't remember reading anything about that in the employee manual. Another person, interestingly enough, said this: I'm not into church, sir, I don't know. As though you could find your purpose in church. But most people just gave him a blank stare. Well, he went around to Chevron station after Chevron station trying to find his purpose in life, which is kind of crazy in a sense, but this is true. Finally, he gets a call from corporate of the Chevron station, Chevron gas stations. And they called me and said, we understand that you have been searching to have a question answered, and you have not received a suitable answer. He said, that's exactly right. The person at Chevron said, well, why don't you please put that in writing, your question, put that in a self-addressed stamped envelope, and we will get back to you with an answer. So he wrote out, dear sirs, and it says that as you travel, you can ask, and I've been traveling, and I just want to know what my purpose in life is. and sent it in. And in a few weeks, he got back his self-addressed stamped envelope. And inside it was his answer from Chevron, which was simply a credit card application. So I'm not sure what that really meant to him, but that is actually a true story. And this idea of understanding vision in relationship. So vision, understanding what God has for me in my relationship with him and how it's all tied together. So first of all, understanding our purpose. Look at this in Revelation 4:11. For you created all things, and they exist because you created what you pleased. In other words, whatever you were pleased to do, God, you did it. You created all things. So everything that you see with your eyes, that you touch with your hands, in a sense, all that you look out and see, including you, God made you. He says you did all those things. Notice how this word pleased, this is actually a little challenging phrase at the end of this sentence to translate. Notice how the King James Version did this. For thou hast created all things. You can take me down to that. And for thy pleasure they are and were created. So for your pleasure they were created. You've made all these things. And it only makes sense, doesn't it? If you have a problem with something and you're not sure what to do, you go get somebody who probably knows what to do. If your car is broken, you go to a mechanic. If your sewing machine is broken, you would go to a Hobby Lobby. I don't know where you take a broken sewing machine. I don't even know why that popped in my mind. If your dog is ailing, you go to the veterinarian. You know, you got all these different places that you would go because they would have more knowledge. So if you want to know what your purpose is, it would certainly make sense to go to the one who created us, to go to God. And part of that is our worship, that we were created for his pleasure. So then when we worship, we are fulfilling what we were created for. So we worship God, and it gives God pleasure when we worship. Now, worship is really our response to God's love. It says in the scripture that we love because he loved us first. So this idea that God has done all these things in this relationship is then when we worship him, it's a response to God's love. We respond to what God has done. It's that love that we have for him. It's that when we're grateful, we're responding to what God does, we're grateful. Now, you have probably, some of you in here, you have at home, you've made a wonderful meal for your family. And maybe you did some extra special things. You just made it from scratch. You made some extra stuff, and it was just wonderful. And you got up to the table, and you served this great meal. And what you were hoping to hear was one or two thank yous. But maybe you didn't hear any. And it doesn't mean that people simply didn't appreciate it, but you were hoping that they would express that because you have this relationship with the people that have sat around the table. I know I could be a lot better at that than what I am, but it's this idea that we recognize how much we're loved and what God has done for us, and we say thank you. Every time our children say thank you, does it not make you feel good inside as a parent? Of course. Whenever they say, thanks, Mom, thanks, Dad, appreciate it, love you, it makes all the difference in the world. But when you do everything for someone, you're trying to really help them along, and there's no acknowledgement, it feels a little bit hollow. It's the same thing for God. Worship, when I'm worshiping God, when I'm in worship, I am responding to God's love that's already there. Worship is also giving back to God. Now, during the Christmas time when you were out searching for the right gift, it's likely that you could have said this. Well, I don't know what we're going to get them. They have everything. So, from my children's perspective, when they want to give a gift to my wife or myself, they're like, man, Mom and Dad, to them, have everything. What could we get them? And I, of course, it's easy to suggest things. Porsche 911, Lamborghini Huracan. There's a lot of those things I could think. But anyways, in realistic terms, I really don't need anything. In fact, honestly, it's a little bit hard for me to say what I would want. I don't know. I mean, what, another pair of sweatpants? I got 40. But I mean, I don't know, but I don't need it. But here's the thing is, you know what I want for Christmas? It's the same thing you as parents, you've realized this too. You just want them to be there. And it's not the gifts. I mean, you enjoy giving them gifts, but it's not necessarily the gift you receive. It's really the fact that they're sitting around a table or sitting around the tree enjoying a great time together. It's that relationship. God is the same way. And our tendency is to put God at a distance from us. God is way up there and so involved and so busy. He would have so many more things that are important to deal with than just me in my little world. But God says, no, you have it wrong. I do want to be involved in your world. And I know you don't think you're important, like the Queen of England is really busy right now because, what's happening in the royal family. I mean, God, you really got to focus over there and help them. But God is saying, no, I can deal with that. But I want to be in your life. I want to have that relationship with you because when you acknowledge me, when you're in that relationship, you are worshiping me and it's pleasure. Listen to this description of worship. So then, my brothers and sisters, if you can skip me down to that one, because of God's great mercy to us, I appeal to you. So God's mercy is coming out to us and touching us in many different ways in our life. He says, then offer yourselves as a living sacrifice to God. In other words, give yourself to God. Dedicated to his service and pleasing to him. In other words, you're pleasing God by how we live our life. This is true worship that you should offer. This idea that, God, here I am. What would you want to do in my life? How can I serve you? How can I make a difference where I work, where I live? How do I make a difference in my neighborhood? How do I make a difference at my school? How do I do this? Because when we do this, whether you're at school and you reach out to somebody and you try to help somebody, whatever it is, wherever you are, when you do that, you're worshiping God. This is what we should be doing, he says. Now, this guy comes up to Jesus. And in Mark chapter 12, verse 30, this guy comes up to Jesus and he says, what's the most important thing that we should do, Jesus? According to the law, what's the most important? And Jesus responds first with this. He says, well, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. That's what you must do. So if you look at those words, if you look at the word simply mind for just a moment, if you love God with all your mind, in other words, that means to give God your attention, to focus your attention on God. If you were to say with all your heart and all your soul, well, that would be to give God your affection. So I give him my attention, my affection, and then all your strength, my abilities. You can remember those 3 A's right there. My attention, my affection, and my abilities. He says, this is what you have to do. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. So in other words, God's not saying that because he thinks that if we do that, it somehow makes him feel better, but he knows that if we do that, it actually will give us peace in this world. It will help us all along the way. We'll have joy. So he says, this is what I need you to do. So if you break those down and you start just like with the mind first, like attention, like giving God our attention. God is already giving us his attention. So in every relationship, you have to feel that it's equal, or it's at least somewhat equal. Because if it goes too far one direction or another, in other words, where you feel, listen, I'm giving everything in this relationship and this person's giving nothing, that relationship will never probably grow and mature. You have to feel that there are, in every relationship, that there are two people that are giving of themselves to better the relationship. And so in this sense, God is saying, I am giving everything. I want you to know I'm giving everything in this relationship with you. I really want you in this relationship. In fact, in Psalm 139, he says, O Lord, you've examined my heart and you know everything about me. You know when I sit up and when I stand up. You know my thoughts even when I'm far away. In other words, you think about me all the time. In fact, he will go on to say in this psalm, he says, if you were to number the grains of sands on the beaches, for every grain of sand is a thought when God, you're thinking about me. It's incredible. In other words, I'm always on your mind. So God is saying, I want you to know, you may not think you're the most important person in the world. And you might think there are a lot of things that are more important than what dealing in your life is. In fact, if you were in Australia, all those fires, which are horrible what they've had to face down there, that's really tragic. And we want to pray for that. But God says, listen, my thoughts are in Australia with the fires they're facing. But I still want to be in your life just as much. I want to be in your life. I think about you all the time. It's interesting, in Romans 8:7, I took it in the Message version. It really kind of helps us to realize this. He says, if it's only one way, if we don't take this to God, then it's only God thinking about us, but we need to think about God. So focusing on the self is the opposite of focusing on God. So if I only focus on myself and what I'm doing and what I'm facing, and I don't involve God in it at all, well, that's the opposite of worship. And anyone completely absorbed in self ignores God. You don't think about God. It's just what I have and what I'm facing and what I'm doing. And you end up thinking more about self than God. And so in this relationship, which needs to be this two-way street, we know where God's at. And God says, I'm thinking about you all the time. But what I want to do is I want to get you involved in this. I want you to be a part of this. When I was young, my dad invited me to come. He would take pictures and photograph sometimes some college sports and college basketball games. And so one day, my dad said to me, I was pretty young. I was probably, early teens. And he said, John, why don't you come and shoot pictures with me? And I thought, that would be incredible. So my dad gave me a camera. Now, back then, nobody that's young, you're first of all, just check out now because you're not going to get this. But pictures weren't instant back then. They weren't even on a phone because we had giant phones that were in our house and we couldn't take them anywhere. But my dad gave me a camera. It was a Yashica. Now, some of you may remember that brand. It was a Yashica camera, and the one, I could hold it like this. You actually took the picture from down here because you looked down through a viewfinder, and then you did the focus on the side, and we would take pictures. And then I also got a Yashica that was a 35 millimeter. The other one was 120. I got a 35 millimeter that I would shoot picture with. But here was the problem. With both those cameras, they work the same way. When you look through the viewfinder, you saw two images. And when you focused the camera, the images would come closer and closer together, and you knew you were in focus when the two images were one. Well, it's difficult to photograph a college basketball game if you have to keep dialing in the focus. So these cameras nowadays, it's very easy, but back then it was extremely hard. So I asked my dad, I said, Dad, how in the world am I going to focus? Because the closer they get, I can't move that fast enough. I can't do it. And he said, John, you have to pick a spot out on the court. And so we are underneath, the hoop is right up here, and we have up against the mats underneath this is where we are. My dad is shooting the pictures, and I'm down there, and I'm just trying to do this. And he says, just pick that image out there, and when the players get into that area, you're in focus, and you'll snap the shutter. Now, I honestly don't know if in all the pictures I took, if I'd like to think that my dad developed those, but I don't know. I don't even know if I had film on the camera. Dad, please tell me I did. But anyways, I don't know. But the idea was to learn how to focus. You had to really, you are watching this so closely because you have to know that they're in your viewfinder and in that position so that you can get the shot. You might get 2 or 3 or 4, I don't know, a game. There's a lot of shots you couldn't get. Keeping it in focus, paying attention, being able to do that. Leanne said to me, she created a theme for my year. for like a New Year's resolution. She comes up with my theme. Leanne, I honestly can't remember it, Leanne. Is it focus? Listening. Yeah, because see, I knew it was related to focus. So she says, let's make that your theme this year. Why can't I pick my own resolutions? So I'm supposed to really listen. So yesterday, this is just from last night. She says, hey, supper's ready. I'm trying something new. I think, Sue, this goes back to you. So I come out to the kitchen. I'm in there watching what? Yes, like everybody should. But I come in their kitchen area. What do they have on? Home and garden. While you have a playoff game? And so Jordan and Josiah are gone. I got nothing. There's nothing but estrogen in our house now. I am there all by myself with a 65-inch screen. There's nobody. I got the dog goes even in and watches HGTV now. So I'm out there, and Leanne finally says, John, it's all ready. She's got it on a plate. I come in. I don't know, that meatball thing, Sue, it was tremendous. So it was really good. I had that and some beans. It was really good. And I grabbed my plate, ran back in, got my drink, and I sat back down there watching the game. And Leanne had this thing in beautiful cupcake foil. I mean, it was beautiful. The most gorgeous cinnamon roll you've ever seen in your life. And then I went back. I said, before I eat that cinnamon roll, I'm not going to eat that cinnamon roll yet. I'm going to go back in, and I'm going to get another one of those little meatballs because those were really good. So I went in and grabbed one of those. Those had this beautiful yellow cheese on top of them. I got that meatball and went back in there, and I'm sitting down. I'm saving my cinnamon roll, okay? So I get all the way through that. Now, I can't tell you how much I love cinnamon rolls, but I am like thrilled that I've got that. And I get down there, and I pull that cupcake paper off, whatever that is called, foil. I pull that all off, and I get that beautiful thing, glazed white frosting on it. And I took a bite of that, and I gagged. Because it wasn't a cinnamon roll. It was another meatball. And I said, what is happening here? And she looks at me, and she goes, do you listen? That's my theme of the year. She said, I told you there's two different cheeses. Those have mozzarella. I'm going to be honest with you. Things that normally go around dessert type things, like that foil, should not be used on a meat type product. We should keep our dessert wrappings completely reserved for the dessert. And she just looks at me in the kitchen. I told you. I don't know about that, to be honest with you. But no, I do. She did tell me. I cannot tell you what disappointment is if you love cinnamon rolls like I do to wind up with a meatball in your mouth. It is just, it's not good. But she's looking at me, John, you have to focus. This year, it's the year of listening. It's the year of focus. And what God is saying here to us, and a more important thing, is really, you need to focus on me. Because you're going to face things in this world, and you need to focus on God. And God is what will help you get you through. I don't know what will happen in the Methodist Church. I really don't. Nobody does. What God would say to me and say to us is this: focus on me. Because I am the difference maker in your life, and I'm the one that can help you through the difficulties of life. Nobody else can. I'm the one who made you. I'm the one that thinks about you constantly, and I need you to focus on me regardless of whatever we might face. And we may face a number of things this year in a number of different ways. So this is really neat in the Message version as well. Jesus then kind of makes this conclusion to this idea of what do we need to do because we become so self-absorbed at times that we forget about God. He says, here's what I want you to do. If you can take me down to that verse, Matthew 6:6. Find a quiet, secluded place, so you won't be tempted to role play with God. I love that. There's no like using fancy terms, fancy words. It doesn't matter. Just stop. Just be who you are. And just be there as simply and honestly as you can manage. The focus will shift from you to God, and you will begin to sense His grace. So whatever we go through, whatever we face this year, what He's saying is here, if you're going to have great vision this year in 2020, the one thing that you're going to have to do, you've got to get into this relationship with me. Remember, this is not a religion. If we keep the term religion there, it is to keep God at a distance. What God is saying is, I'm so in love with you, I want to be involved in your life daily, all the time. I want to be involved in your life. So like what we said last week was, which is what I want to kind of continue this week, is this. If we can begin our day with God, before you get out of bed, if it works for your schedule in your situation, just start by praying, God, help me today. Be with me, guide me, just focus on God. And then when you go to bed at night, praying that, God, thank you for the day and thank you for these things. You know, God is there for us. He's saying, I want you to look at this like a relationship. I think about you all the time, waiting for you to talk to me and to spend time with me. And that's where God is trying to reach out to us and love us, and He's waiting for us to respond. There are all those times when we just cherish times being alone. I shared this a few years ago when we were in Chicago. My son was getting a new car, but he had his old car, and he said, Dad, he said, the brakes aren't that good, and I need to get another car anyways. And so when he got the new car, he said, Dad, you drive the old car back, and I did, and I put my foot to the floor, and there were no brakes. None, in Chicago, which is like most of the people in Chicago. But anyways, no, that's not true. I drove, so I just coasted in front of, thankfully, as God helped us, I drove into this mechanical area near an auto parts store, and I just drove the car there. I said, Jordan, if we have the right tools, I said, I can do those brakes, so I can do those brakes, and we can get that done tomorrow. And he had always helped me. He knew every tool in the toolbox, because as a little kid, he always wanted to help me when I was working on motorcycles or cars, and he knew all the tools. And so in that parking lot, out in front of an auto parts store, we changed the brakes of this car. Now, that would be a good thing, wouldn't it? Change the brakes of the car? But I'm telling you this. I would do that again today. To spend hours with Him alone, under a car, doing those kinds of things. You know what it is? It's about a relationship, isn't it? I'd do it again. I'll do it again every week. Probably not more than that. But no, I would. Just to be able to spend time. That's the way God's looking at us. I just want to spend time with you. I just want you to realize this is not a religion. It's a relationship. The second thing was affection. In other words, the first one was my attention, my mind, but then my heart and soul. And listen to this. I want you to, this is coming from the prophet Hosea before Jesus ever walked on the earth. The prophet speaking to the people of Israel, he says this. I want you to show love, not offer sacrifices. I want you to know me more than I want burnt offerings. In other words, every time you sinned, you had to bring a sacrifice to the priest who would sacrifice this animal on behalf of your sin. And see, all of a sudden people start going through the motions. Okay, I sinned. It was kind of a wild weekend, and here's my lamb. And you'd have to walk up to the priest. You put your hand on the head of the lamb. The priest would take a knife and slice the lamb's throat, and you would watch this lamb die, and you would realize that lamb died so that your sins could be forgiven. It was a vivid reminder. And so, but what God is saying is that people start just going through the motions. Well, I got to go get another lamb. You put the lamb, okay, I'm done. Next day, I got to get another lamb. And you start going through the motions. And what God is saying is, He says, I think what you think, you're just going through this, and you're basing, this is like a religion to you. It's not a relationship anymore. And what you think is that if you just keep getting the lamb offered all the time, that's okay, that's a relationship. It's not. I don't need this like this. I want you to show me love. I want you to love me. In Revelation, He says, you need to do the things you did at first. Which is why often when I do marriage counseling for couples that come in, I give them this simple assignment. I mean, like, you're going to realize this is not like really out there stuff like, oh man, that's impressive. This is what I say. Because I'm free, I give assignments. So that which makes people become accountable to that. And so here's my assignment. If you came to me, this would be my assignment. Today or sometime this week, a couple times this week, here's what I need you to do. I want you to go out together as a couple, just somewhere, your house or go to a trail, and I just want you to walk. Just walk. You don't even need to talk, but you do need to hold hands and just walk. Now you think, I'm going to tell you something. If your marriage isn't where you want it to be, you try this. Just try it. And you begin to walk, and all of a sudden, because you'll get bored after a while, you're going to have a hard time walking a mile or two without having to say anything. And all of a sudden, you're holding hands, and you may at first, you're like, I don't want to hold that person's hand. You know what she did to me? Or he did to me? And you don't want to hold it. But I'm telling you, there's something when you hold hands. By the way, you held hands right up here at the altar. When I asked, we did the vows and the wedding and all that kind of stuff. So you can hold hands. So you're holding hands. I said, you just go out and walk. When people go out and walk, they start to talk. They start doing the things they did at first, the basic parts of a relationship. I'm going to be honest with you. This happened this week too. Leanne and I were walking in the mall. And as we're walking down the mall, she reaches over and grabs my hand in the mall. And we're old. I mean, you imagine these young kids are like, oh my gosh. So we're walking down, and I said, and this is going to be, I don't know if you're going to get this or not, but it gave me a little tingle, okay? That's a good thing. I'm 60, still getting a tingle. Okay. I don't even know where this is going. So we're walking down, and I said, I'd like to hold your hand. She says, this is exactly what she said. This is an actual quote. She looked at me in the mall, and she said, I love it when you reach for my hand. You say, what is that? That's a relationship. It's like you start doing those things that you did at first. And God is starting to say the same thing. He says, I love when you reach out to me. I know you could go to church and you could teach Sunday school. And you could do all those kinds of things. And you can kind of do this without really engaging what? Your affection. That you might engage your attention, your mind, and your abilities. But I want your affection. He says, I want you to show me love. I want you to love me. So in other words, it's that little tingle. It's that like, God, I want to be with you. Thank you so much for what you're doing in my life. And last night I came to bed. Usually I come to bed a little bit later than Leanne, and thought she was already asleep. And I walked in the bedroom. The lights are completely off. This is last night. And because I'm listening, the year of listening, I'm attuned to her voice. And all of a sudden she says, John. I said, oh, you're still up? She goes, yeah. She goes, can you go out and get me a piece of Swiss cheese? Yes, I can, Leanne, because I'm listening. Right there. That's exactly right. And I got the Swiss cheese. We came back in. I couldn't sleep. She couldn't sleep. So we prayed together. We prayed together. Our one son, Josiah, is in the Dominican Republic, and we hardly ever get to hear from him. Love to hear from him more. I just don't. We can't. It's not able to communicate right now. So when you get used to communicating to someone and you can't, it's kind of hard on you. And we couldn't. So last night we were praying for him. Because we have a relationship with God, we're praying to God. Because we have a relationship with our son and we know that God can go beyond any barrier and any distance, we're praying to God to be with our son, who's in another place, in another country. I'm so thankful for that relationship and for my wife's relationship that we have. You see, it's all about relationship. It's when you grab somebody's hand at night in bed and you pray together. It's about a relationship. And you feel even closer to each other. And you're reaching out together and you're doing these kinds of things. And it says, and you feel love. It is that makes such a difference in our life. And the last thing is our abilities. So here in Romans 12:1, he wraps up by saying this. So we have our attention, which is our mind. We have our affection, which is our love and our soul. With everything that we have, we love God. And then we have our abilities. So here's what he says. So here's what I want you to do. God helping you. Take your everyday, ordinary life, okay? You're sleeping, you're eating, you're going to work, walking around life. Take everything that's ordinary and place it before God as an offering. Do that. Place it before God. Say, God, here I am. I'm pretty ordinary. Not a lot of really incredible things happen in my life, but if you're there and you really want to have this relationship and you're the one who made me, then I'm coming to you and I'm gonna build this relationship. And I really don't even know how to start this thing because I've not been really good at it, but I will try to have this relationship with you. And I will talk to you. And I don't have the right vocabulary and my theological words are very limited, but God, I'm just going to give you who I am and I will talk to you every day and I will try to reach out to you. And that moment that you begin that is worship. And it's why we were created. So when we get the whole thing together, then what we do at work, what we do at school, what we do when we're interacting with other people in other places, it all becomes worship to God. Because it's about a relationship. We were never meant to keep God at a distance. I would probably, if I couldn't talk to my children, I think it would be so difficult and so hard to live. I long to talk to them, to spend time with them, especially when I'm not around them. I long for those moments. How does God long to have those moments with us? And he says, that's what you want to do. That's why I gave you worship, to worship me. Let's talk about a relationship together. You want to make a difference in 2020? Can you imagine what would happen if every morning and every night we spent some time reflecting on God? Perhaps we started devotions or we read a chapter of the Bible. Somehow we began to think about a relationship and we realized, wait a minute, this is a love letter from you to me. Wouldn't that be awesome? And I wonder what would change in our life and how it would make an impact on 2020. When you walk out of this room today, it will be your choice if you want to keep it at a distance and just call it a religion. But I want you to know the God who made you wants you to say, no, this is a relationship and I'm with you. Come on, I know you better than anybody else. Let's go. Let's do this together. I long to spend some time with you. Let's pray. God, thank you for your word to us and your grace. Thank you for never giving up on us. If you wanted to give up on somebody, you should have given up on me a long time ago. But you did not. Your love compels you to think about every one of us all day and all night. And you long for what we long for, deep relationships with others. And so, Lord, help us to begin our days and to end our days in relationship with you, to spend time with you, and to focus, get that focus, just focusing on you, to get some of our day to that, how it will change us, Lord. I know you long to give us what will be the end result of having that relationship, joy and peace. Oh, Lord, give it to us and help us to worship you by having a relationship with you. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. God bless you. Have a wonderful day in the Lord. Be careful in that parking lot out there and have a wonderful day. We'll see you next week. God bless you.